Hi there, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate everybody watching these things. It really has been great fun for me. I hope you're enjoying it based on the reports. Hi, Craig. Based on the reports I'm getting, people are enjoying it and appreciating it. It is very cool, I must say. We are looking for the legend, Mama Whaley, Suzy. Where are you, Suzy? We're looking for you. There she is. She knows the deal. She comes. She's connecting. Hi there, Suzy.
How are you?
How's it going?
Everything's great.
Good, good, good.
Like we're open. People are playing golf. It's very exciting.
Oh, yes. I was talking to the Swiss PGA this morning, and they're very excited. May the 11th, they're out. They can get to playing some golf, and they can actually even start doing some teaching, I believe. So they're certainly looking forward to that. And it's nice when we can get back out there and play some golf. That's for sure.
I cannot. Well, our tee sheet's so packed. I was too silly not to put my own tee time in. So I'm gonna have to wait a few days. And in Palm Beach County, we're still under an ordinance, no lessons yet. But we're hoping everybody minds their, manners and keeps their social distancing so that we can get back on the lesson tee too. So I'm looking forward to that. I hope in about a week or so we can get back to that.
We were talking a little bit earlier, and you said, well, I'm not sure how those first few lessons are going to be after the break. And, I find that when I've had a break from teaching, I get out on the lesson tee and I've got this clarity and I seem to communicate better and things seem to be smoother for me. What do you think is going to happen when you get back out there?
Yeah, I'm just going to talk too much. It's not a talk too much. It brings me back to my early teaching days when, I definitely just talked the entire lesson and my student would leave and I go, oh, I thought that well. And I think every one of them was like, I don't even have a clue what she just said. So I don't go back to that moment in time from 27 years ago, but it's a possibility.
It's a real possibility. You've got a
Yes.
lot of information stored up. You got to get it out somewhere. You've got
I
to
think
get it out.
tired of hearing about it, so I just have to talk to somebody else. So my first few lessons, I'm definitely going to book the ones that I know are as chatty as I am. So it's perfect.
You can kind of break even on the chatting there. You can
Right.
break even.
Yeah.
Suzy, you've got a big job. You've got a big job. You're heading up the PGA, a massive organization, huge operation. What is the PGA doing, and how are they changing the way they operate to best deal with this pandemic, this event that we've never seen before?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it's not me. I have this amazing team, board of directors, officers, staff, all our officers in 41 sections working so hard every day. First and foremost, to keep everybody safe and healthy. I
Mhm.
think our primary goal. Beyond that, we want to make sure that we're giving resources and tools that our members need right now, tangible benefits that we can provide, whether it's on pga.org as resources or best practices. We just went to the for approving our guidelines that we put together within the industry for bringing golf back, for making sure that we can continue to play this game we love on these amazing open spaces that are really conducive to social distancing. But how we go about that and do that, obviously, locality to locality, will be a little bit different.
Mhm.
And that's been the tricky part, is really trying to navigate some states open, some states closed, even within states. For example, as I said, in Palm Beach, Florida's open. Palm Beach South was closed up until yesterday. So it's really, every member is in a different situation, every associate, every student. We're concerned about everyone. We want to get everyone to the other side. We've built a disaster relief fund, which we're really proud of, and people have starting to receive those grants that we need. We'll roll out phase 2 of that at the end of May, which will be even more money for those that are in need for that. And while we're grateful for the government's fiscal package, we knew it wasn't enough for some of our industry partners, whether it be PGA members, LP members, golf course superintendents, and many others. And beyond that, we're looking for this to end at some point without respect to those that have suffered tragically for it. But we want golf to be even better than before. And there are some things that have come out of this If you want to have some good thoughts and hope, our online education, which we've been really working towards for 5 years to get everybody behind and approved. We were ready for that, and thankfully we kicked it in gear when it happened, and it's going really well. We've been through, some of our associates have gone to level 1 and level 2 in much less time away from their families because they could do it from their computers at home, and then beyond, less expensive, and that's what we need. With the same level of skill, many of our professionals really struggled with the concept because they wanted people to do it as they did it, and they worked very hard to wearing that logo, and I understand that, and so did our board. But at the same time, I think in a new era, in a new environment, this gives us the opportunity to really deliver a product that's very high level, but is in a place, in a space that people can consume it for cost and less time. And that's what people have been clamoring for. And I'm really proud of the fact he has stepped up to deliver that. We're still working through level 3. But so to answer your question, we're trying very hard to realize what can we do for our members. That's every morning, every night, every day. Is what we and what does that mean? And while we know we're not going to please everybody all the time, we need to make decisions. And crisis has forced that. And that's what we're doing.
And I must say, I get, and I'm sure lots of people listening in are getting peppered with those PGA emails. I get a bunch of those, and it's really a good sign. You guys are on the ball. It certainly appears that you're on the ball with all the emails, all the updates. And like you said, it's got to be a challenge with every region, every locality being a little bit different to each other. It's tough to come out with, here's the program. But you guys really, based on what I've seen, have done a lovely job. And I know those 5-day, I think it's 4 or 5-day packages where people can take those online now. And that's certainly making it easier. They can stay with their family and save some bucks at the same time as well, which is great.
And our learning library is online right now, based on our status as a 501c6. Based on the extraordinary circumstances we're in, the IRS has allowed us to open that learning library free of charge for 90 days. Typically, there's a fee to that. So if people aren't aware of that, you should, and you're a PGA professional, that is completely free. There's amazing courses in there that perhaps you've put off or you wanted to dive into or have an interest in. Take a look. It has some amazing learning opportunities within it.
Oh, that's neat. I did not know that. I did not know that. So that's good to know. Suzy, I want to talk. Let's talk a little bit of kind of fun stuff. Let's talk some golf. Let's talk some coaching. I know you do a lot of both. Fantastic player. Tell us about. I know there was a few years ago where you made it into this. It was a PGA event, and how was that experience?
Yeah, I'm assuming you're talking about Hartford.
Yes.
Yeah, so I played in the Greater Hartford Open in 2003, qualified for it in 2002. So that in itself was challenging because I had to wait close to 9 months to actually tee it up. I won our section championship, which came with an exemption, and so many have already heard the story, but never imagined they would let me play. So that wasn't the reason I entered. I entered to try to win the section championship.
Yeah.
Full of money, and won the tournament, went home and had a glass of wine with my husband, and went off to kindergarten orientation that night thinking that was kind of the end of it, and good for us. It was a good day. And the next day, our worlds blew up. I was a head golf professional at a public golf course in Avon, Connecticut. My husband was the GM at TPC River Highlands, and our phones it was just ridiculous. I mean, we had over 900 requests in one day for media interviews, and I called my husband with do you think, I guess this is kind of a big deal, and answer the question, people would say, where are you going to play? Are you going to play? And there's just so much more than just, are you going to play for me in considering that opportunity. So yeah, I had earned it, but we had 2 small daughters. They were 8 and 5 at the time, then turned 9 and 6 when I actually played. As I mentioned, we both had full-time jobs. We were both working ADR. I had 0 staff, very small staff. Thankfully, so thankful for the staff I have, because if they're listening, I'm sorry, you did everything for me that year. But an amazing female owner who let me practice and play. But, for me, there had to be really smart reasons to play. I wasn't representing the LPGA Tour. I had played on the LPGA Tour, but I wasn't a current member of the LPGA Tour. I had earned the opportunity through the PGA of America. And so I was really representing our fellow professionals at that event. But it turned into very quickly, I was representing women from all over the world, which was a responsibility. Working women on top of that. And then, people expected me to say yes. I had like 2 full-time jobs as a mom and a head professional. And they're like, what do you mean you have to think about it? I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm just going to go out and play against the best male players in the world. Yeah, sure. I'll meet you at 8 a.m. for my, right? But that's really kind of what it came down to. And my daughter ended up making the decision for me. I was reading her a little book at night before she went to bed, as we always did. And it was about being brave and taking opportunities and not worrying about falling down. And she looked right at me and said, Mom, then why aren't you playing? And I'll never forget it. I closed the book and I said, well, you know what? I'm going to. And I gave her a kiss goodnight, walked downstairs, and I said to my husband, well, we're in. And I had done that quick. Cool. Next day said, we're out. And he said, but are you really in? And I said, yeah, we're in. We're going to do this. And so in December, I announced I was going to play. And from there, it was just a whirlwind. I worked out 3 hours every day without missing a day. I started at 4 a.m. As I could amongst my staff took over so many of my responsibilities at the time. My boss let me go play and try to compete. I played in the PPC at the time instead of the PPC in 2002. I played in my LPGA National Championship. It just, anything I could possibly do to prepare myself to take on enormous, from where I sit, it felt enormous.
Sure, yeah.
To get ready, I had a sports psychologist that I worked with in college, Dr. Richard Koop, who I called him up and said, do you even want to do this with me? Because the publicity was just ridiculous. Yeah. He said, it didn't even take him a second. He said, I'm all in. And he was all in. My husband was my swing coach at the time. The pressure on him, ridiculous. It was at the facility that he was the general manager. So there's all these little intricacies. Michelle McGann was one of my friends when I played on tour. Her father, Bucky, I cherish him for the rest of my life. He was willing to caddy for me. And it's just this amazing week that thankfully I was brave enough to step in.
Yeah. So challenging yet so special. And oftentimes it sounds like to me when your daughter gave you that cue, when you make, and I experience this quite often, when you've got a difficult decision and you make the right decision, you just know it, and you just know it straight away. And oftentimes you'll be vacillating between one side or the other, and as soon as you make that right decision, it's like, that's the right call, and it just feels right.
Yeah,
great job.
Myself now, and when we lived at River Highlands when they were older, and they would say, did you really play from back there? I did. Did you make a par on this hole? So that made it even more special because they remember it from photos, and my oldest remembers a little bit from the crowds and the amount of people that were in and out of our home for 9 months. But it's more fun to talk to them about it now and go through pictures, and they get a kick out of it.
So special, man. Really cool. Really cool. Suzy, let's talk some coaching. If you had a student in front of you and they were standing there bringing their problems to you, and you could ask them one question besides how can I help, what would that question be? What would you ask them?
I would ask them, do you get joy out of your golf, or does golf give you stress?
That's interesting.
Yeah, and most of them say, I get joy out of it. And when they do that, they realize that this perception of perfection has to go away. This idea of I'm going to be consistent can go away. It gives me the opportunity to remind them that misses happen, that we're going to work together to get you to the point where you want to be. We can with the time you have to put to it, but together, enjoy the journey. And it makes it a little bit to make a mistake in front of me when they're not so worried about being perfect.
That's good insight. And Suzy, if I said to you, two sides of the coin here, I'm going to pitch one side to you and ask you what you think. Golf is all about competing. Golf is all about shooting the lowest score. Golf is all about winning. What's your take?
From my own personal opinion, competing.
Just in general.
Competing. I mean, it's always been for me. I'm very competitive, but for me, I think what I'm so grateful for are the people that introduced me to sport. So my mom is who taught me how to play golf, not my dad. My mom would have been this avid athlete had she had the opportunities to be such. She practiced more than I did. She always told me I would have been on tour longer if I had her dedication to practice.
Yeah.
But she introduced me to sport and always it about the experience and not about perfection. I had an amazing PGA professional, Joe Tesori. Thankfully, my mom knew when she couldn't help me anymore, took me to Joe. And Joe literally, I mean, I worked for him since I was 15. He taught me everything, but it wasn't about ever being the greatest. It was always about, gosh, you almost have it, Suzy. You're just not there yet. Maybe you should do a little bit, maybe tomorrow. Maybe you'll get it tomorrow, right? It just gave me this amazing concept that I didn't of it's okay and how fun and challenging is fun, right? Let me be challenged. Let me be really bad and figure out how to make it better. And so for me, all of my sports, I just lucked out. I had these amazing coaches who understood Carol Dweck, who understood the principle of a growth mindset. And I don't know that I've ever lived in that fixed space. So competition, it doesn't scare me. It excites me. It makes me anxious and nervous and prepared and over prepared. Where I fall short or where I fell short as a tour player, not necessarily as a club professional player, but as a tour player is, again, I was always a really good athlete, but I relied on that. And when you get to the elite level, pretty much everybody's a really good athlete. You better have more to the party if you think you're going to win. And so my confidence would get shaken far quicker, in my opinion, than other people perhaps had worked harder on exact delivery. I just didn't. I just played and okay, my 3 shots are going to do it for the tour. That obviously not the case.
Yeah.
Not out there, but wouldn't change anything now. I just probably coach a little differently now, ensuring that the mental side and that 50% that P and Lynn talk about between skills, but also attitude, right? I met a podcast with Pete Cowan a couple days ago, and I saved, but I listened to it a couple days ago, and I'm literally out for my run, going, yes, that's it, right? Because it's so much for that. Whether it's a club golfer trying to win their first 9-hole club championship, or whether it's a tour player. I always tell people nerves are nerves, anxiety is anxiety. It doesn't matter what the trophy says on it. How you competition and how you can digest the fact that you're going to lose a lot, win, and how you're going to bring your confidence to a moment in time where it gets a little shaken, and how fast can you get over that and move. I just wasn't very good at getting over it quickly and moving forward, including after a bad round. It took me, 2 days, right? Where, I have a daughter who's playing professionally. I think one of the gifts she has is she can just, fire a horrible round and call us up and be like, oh, it's just horrible. And she's just as miserable as we were. But like half an hour later, she's done. We're like, well, do you want to hit some balls or do you need to work on the ball flight? She's like, no, I'm hitting great. Right? It's just fascinating. I could never do that. I wish I could have, but I just couldn't. So.
And you alluding to everybody's good, everybody's talented, and players at the top level are seeking out every little advantage they can get. And that gets me to think about the rollback. And I want to get your take on the rollback, because oftentimes I'll hear people say, well, golfers today are better athletes. And I think what they mean is it's not as if human genetics and human DNA has changed in the last 50 years. That's not the case. But I think our ability as human beings to be able to extract as much as possible out of that unique athlete, that unique human being, and via fitting and training and fitness and practice and technique and measurement, all of these factors all go together towards making golf essentially at the top level. If you dedicate your life to it, they make golf easier. And when golf's easier, we shoot lower scores. And so the competition is tremendous up top there. What would you say to about the rollback, Suzy? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you mean by the rollback, if you mean just where people are today and the groups of people, and how many are elite versus then, right? I think you have to look at the circumstances you all mentioned. Coaching, obviously, part of that as well. I think physics has enormous part of that. I think all the technology that we have now to actually see the data scientifically, us just looking at ball flight. I think clubs obviously have had a huge transformation on ball speed, especially for youth, right? I mean, when I was growing up, and I'm aging myself, but a lot older than probably some of the people watching, we had to hit the middle of the face. You had zero option, right?
Yeah.
And so had to make sure that that was your primary goal. And I'm not everybody's primary goal today. We all know if you hit the middle of the face, the ball is going to go farther and go straighter. However, it wasn't as horrible, right? I mean, it wasn't more. You hit the toe or you were out of bounds. There was no, like, I hit it in the first cut of the right rough, hitting on the heel or the toe. And today that's just not the case. So I see youth being just, swing out of their shoes. I think the way we were taught, right? And fortunately, again, I had an amazing professional, but me included. When I first started teaching, I started teaching with Jim Flick and Bob Tosky, right?
Okay.
At a facility where they were, Martin Hall stuff, Mike Malaska, who was a biomechanist before it was even in vogue to be one, told me to read Paul Chek's book. This is 25 years ago, right? So I mean, who has that in their library? I mean, a lot of people might, but that's what we lived on then. And you think about the things that I taught then, but when I left Jim and Bob and went to work at a country club, I remember distinctly teaching a young girl who was this amazing soccer player. And I literally was holding her feet down as she was swinging. So there was a tiny little peanut jumping, trying to deliver force. And I was like, your feet need to stay on the ground. And
Yes.
Well, long story short, she made the U.S. Olympic soccer team. She is not a professional golfer. And I'm onus of that because it was I didn't allow that. You look at the Justin.
But you didn't know any better.
I didn't, but some of that is the transformation that you're seeing, right? We have coaching now, which tells us, you can have different posts, you can have torso, there's so many different dynamics to delivering a club to a golf ball. And when you get to the elite level, it's even more so, right? Because many people ask them, well, how did you do that? Well, what do you mean? I just feel the face. Doesn't tell us anything, right?
Yeah.
But so I think, as we go, it's exciting to see that competition has become global, that more and more people are playing the game at this incredibly high level. But where I live in my space today, I don't live in a developmental space. For years in my golf academy, we developed elite juniors. And that gave me the opportunity to develop, kinematic sequence from the get-go, from the time they were tiny, functional movement skills, right? ADM, and then moving on to kinetic, where they start delivering force. And that was great fun, just watching so many of them get really good. Now I'm at a country club where the majority of my clients, they don't practice. They maybe a little, that's a huge generalization.
Not enough.
Like their practice session is, well, did you practice your putting today? Well, I warmed up for 4 minutes and I'm good. Putt, right? So, you have to adjust your coaching, I think, to the person standing in front of you, which we all know. But if you bring it back, the rollback from where our amateurs are, if you look at amateur golf and how it's progressed, it really hasn't taken the same route as the elite. I know that's about ball speed too, right? So as coaches, we have to make sure we realize, where we are, and, bifurcation I'm not a fan of. the golf course for the elite players. But I do think when you coach, you really need to understand that principle and understand that most of the people standing in front of me today, generalizing again, I'm out there trying to have them hit it a little straighter, a little less right or a little less left.
Yes.
I'm to help them from 100 yards and in navigate how to have the green or quadrant to ensure that they understand that and where they want to leave their ball for the easiest putt for their capability. So I'm constantly trying to get data from my students when they're out playing because they don't have a lot of data in practice. And if I don't have what's happening out there, I think it's very difficult to help somebody go from 92 to 85 or from 115 to 100, right? And I think that it's just important to coaching to understand that jump from 115 to 100 means the world to that person in front of you. There's just as much as it does for somebody trying to break 80 for the first time. And once you inherently know that and can navigate them toward that, you don't need thousands of Instagram followers watching your instruction. You need 70 clients.
Correct.
With you every single day.
Yeah. That's a great point.
And or not, but.
Yeah. Suzy, do you have your students use statistics, any kind of stat tracking program that you tend to favor with your students over another?
Yeah, for so long, I just used handwritten at Jerry Chucker's short game skills for all of my junior development. I put them on computerized form, and then I had little books they would carry around in their golf bag and keep all that for me handwritten. So again, aging myself, right? I've just gotten into Decade, and I'm excited to kind of navigate Decade with my daughter who's playing professionally. So thankful to Scott and to that, and then multiple other programs, Birdie Fire and other programs. But I find it difficult, Andrew, and just this is being honest, again, in my space where I had elites and a lot of them, it's very easy to have a collegian, tour player, a junior, dive in to keeping their stats. I find it much more difficult to consult, coach a member, to take the time and to understand the reasoning behind it, right? So certainly I want them to read all the books that are out now, which are amazing. But many of them, even when you give that to them, and that's not being disrespectful, it's just they don't see the value.
Yeah.
So show them the value. So what I did, and I took this from a gentleman, Ed Sweeney, who nobody will know. He was a behavioral scientist who I called long ago because my best students weren't getting to the next level. And I thought I was putting every effort in that was necessary to get them there. I just didn't understand why they weren't getting there. They hit the ball great. They were doing things amazingly well. And in competition, it was falling apart. I said, do you mind coming up? I'll fly you up and you could watch me teach for the weekend and share with me your thoughts on what I'm doing wrong. And he took
That's awesome, by the way.
Pounds of notes. And, what came out of that for me, and this was years ago, was this idea of making sure that you had standards and measures, right? And he said to me, well, you're not measuring anything. You're telling them to do this drill, but there's really no correlation to the play. And I know that sounds super common sense, but as a teacher, you feel like you're doing that, sometimes even when you're not. So once he gave me these standards of measurement, for example, if you want to be elite, you want to get 5 out of 6 balls in a certain area, right? You've chosen, and then you're going to move on. But you're not going to do it in block. You're going to do it as if you were playing the game.
Yeah.
Gave me a sure that my students were actually taking their own notes at the time. Keep in mind, this was prior to phones and everything. And so I would literally stop the lesson and have them jot down a little note. And immediately, without me changing anything other than that, my students' performance went up. So it was like 100% understanding. Now that's what I do for my club member. But in a very small, easy, palatable start. So for example, very simple, a very large circle, even for my better players, and then showing them, okay, can you just get 5 out of 5 in that for me while we stand here together? Oftentimes they won't do it, even your 3, 4 steps. And they'll say, well, wait a second. Let me do it again. Let me do it again.
Give me another go.
Yeah, give me another. And once they realize the value and the translation to their performance. And you have to, as a coach, tie that together for them. Once you do that, they're all in. They'll keep the stats, they'll do the work. And especially as you start to see their scores lower, I just always tell coaches that if you aren't paying attention as their handicap is going down at computer and not sending them off a little, hey, way to go. I saw you went from a 16 index to a 15. Great work, right? And I know it's day to day now, so it's easy as a coach to see if there's any trends. The students that you're teaching, you have to take that personal relationship one step farther. When they know you're watching, they will also keep more data and keep more notes. It's more work, but I'm telling you, it's so worth it, and your students are so much happier.
And that is the problem with statistics and tracking a player's numbers. Is it's difficult and it's a pain. And you're out there and you want to play golf, but you've got to write all the stuff down after each hole, and it's just. And really, I'm going to encourage you. I'm affiliated with a company called Archos, and I got with Archos because it really is some great data. It's strokes gained, it's PGA Tour level data, pretty much.
Yep.
And it's easy to do. It's easy to do. And the cool thing is online, as a coach, I can follow all my students. And so they go out and play around. I can look at every GPS, satellite view. I can look at every shot they played, every score they made on a hole, and I can give them feedback on that. And it really is a cool thing, and it's quite easy to do. I think that's the challenge.
Your feedback. Like, okay, let me give you an example. Here's a simulated example. You've got a student out there and they've hit it. They can't hit a fade to save their life, right?
Yeah.
So hit a double cross on the 6th hole, and the 6th hole goes from left to right. They hit a double cross. What do you say? What do you text them?
Obviously I could only get access to their rounds afterwards once they've completed the round. Okay. But I would go, what club did you hit off number 6 tee? What shot were you attempting to undertake? Because the moral of the story, and Scott Fawcett's big on this, I want you to stick to your shape. And if your shape is such that you cannot hit a fade, your shape's a draw. And so we need to select the appropriate club to get a draw in play, even if the second shot is much longer or you can't even reach the green through this by the second shot. Let's play the hole appropriately for you.
I love that. And I think that's what it takes, right? It takes that follow-up, right? Because we can have our students take a million stats, and they're going to look through it and make their own decisions. And I know some of that Archos does too, has an algorithm that makes it even easier to tell you what to go work on, right?
Yeah.
And you get to think, oh, my short game stank, my putting stunk today. No, actually, I didn't hit any greens.
Yeah.
So, and then you didn't get it up and down ever. So, whatever the coach decides, that's the point. But I that's where sometimes I've learned over time, a long time, is that's where that relationship is critical, and it absolutely takes more work. But when you actually moment and sit down with the student or send them a little note or go over something in their stats, like you just said, it's so much more impactful than them waiting a week to see you on Tuesday at 4 and then saying, oh gosh, what happened how was your round? Oh, my round was fine, but I made triple on 6. Oh, what happened on 6? Well, I don't know. I hit it in left woods, right? It doesn't give the coach and the student the opportunity to say, hey, walk me through, help me understand what you were doing on 6, right? Not what happened, because that's like the word as a player. Please don't ever ask anybody what happened. The only thing you say back to me is I sucked, right?
Yeah.
Back negative. Instead just, I loved what, if you're a coach watching, I always tell my students that when I used to coach elite, I used to always say, hey, I love, it was really a joy to watch you play today. But when we have a moment and we get a chance to sit together, let's talk about the round and how you felt about it. Right. And then they just kind of look at you, especially if it was a bad round, and they go, okay. And then
do we have to?
What'd you think? So, I just think coaching is so much more than technical skills. It's
For
a
sure.
lot.
For sure. I would actually encourage, it's something I did in my process for the Swiss PGA presentation I did this morning. I wrote down all the funnels, all the buckets that we as coaches have available to us to help a student improve. And it's something I would encourage all coaches to do is just sit down, it'll take you 15 minutes and write down all the buckets that you think you can utilize to help students improve. It might be physical, mental, technical, how to practice, how to prepare for a round, how to deal with poor shots. There's so many different things we can do. And I feel that far too often as coaches, we jump into the technical bucket far too quickly.
Yeah, I learned a lot of that outside of golf because I started to really dive in. I love to read. So I started to dive into coaching books from other great coaches like John Wood in sports that were more team based, just to get a concept of, how is that delivered? What are they doing to the driver of that team? There's typically always a few leaders of the team, but how are they incorporating what that person's doing field to raise everybody else up? And if I could emulate that, if I didn't have Tiger Woods in my stable or, MB Park in my stable, Lexi Thompson or whomever, right, who would be the best, how am I as a coach going to elevate somebody who's playing against the best, the same group, to not only get to them, but to go past them? And so I would also recommend, don't be afraid to dive into the best business leaders books, to other coaching books, to peak performance books, to United States, an amazing library that you can dive into of coaching videos from coaches from all over the world who have successfully partnered and championed elite athletes to gold medals. So I think we can do this by ourselves as coaches. I think things like you're doing and what people have done the last 6 weeks is so incredible to share your information. Because you're always going to pick up something, and I think the best coaches are always learning. They're never satisfied. They're always, no matter who you're teaching, whether it's brand new players every day, all day, or you're teaching tour players, if you're not constantly evolving your coaching style, number one, I think you will get bored and it won't be a purpose or a passion anymore, and the people who feel that. But number two, it just makes you better. It just makes you more skilled. Don't ever worry about not knowing something, is what I always tell people.
Yes, that's a good one. I like that. Suzy, I just came up with this question for you. If you could do an Instagram live and you were the interviewer, and you could have any coach ever, dead or alive, any sport, and you could have an hour with any coach ever, who would it be?
Dean Smith.
Really? Okay. That's interesting. I used to coach in golf, Larry Brown.
Okay.
A competitor of Dean's and a compatriot of Dean's. But that's interesting you would say that. For what reason?
I'm a Tar Heel. Okay, so I've got to throw that in.
Okay, you got to say that.
But Dean had this unbelievable record, inclusive of when his players weren't necessarily the top recruits in the country, right? He had this unbelievable ability to inspire and empower people to the highest level of performance beyond what that person actually envisioned themselves doing, right? So coach, I'm intrigued by any coach that has the ability to do that, because I think oftentimes some people grow up extremely confident, right, and have that ego and say I'm the best and no one's going to beat me, and gosh, good for them, right? But I would say sometimes they don't see themselves in a role until somebody asks them about being in that role, and once you can see yourself there, then you have the opportunity to even elevate beyond that. If I were to be able to interview a golfer, that extensive. So, I would go straight to women first. I would go straight to some of the LPGA Hall of Famers. I would go to Mickey Wright. I would go to Babe Zahari. Cool. I would go to Patty Berg. I would go to Alice Dye, and unfortunately, Alice was just dear to me. She wrote me letters up until yelling at me mostly done for women's golf. But so many of those women who opened the door for those of us now who are in this business, I would be fascinated, because the challenges they had would pale. I mean, mine pale in comparison. They allowed us to all be in these positions. As far as male golfers or male coaches, I mean, I would want to sit all day with Harvey Pinnock and just have a
that's
chat.
a good choice. That's
Probably wouldn't have back, but I would just sit. You know?
yeah. That's a. I have one that just came to my mind that I'd love to interview. He currently coaches. There's a football team in Europe called Liverpool, and his name's Jurgen Klopp. And he's this crazy German guy, and he's just got this team that's really underachieved for a long, long time. And he's got this team, and he's taken these guys, and he's built these guys up, and he speaks so lovingly about them. And he's got them believing that they are the best team in the world, that it's amazing. They really are. I'd love to interview him. I'd love to talk to John Wooden.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that you know Alice Dye, because there's a famous story in these parts where I live, Hilton Head, close to Hilton Head Island, that in 1969, few people know this, but Harbour Town was actually Jack Nicklaus's first golf course that he was given to design. And so Jack's out there, and he's looking at this piece of land, and he's going, I got no idea. And so Jack calls up his buddy, Pete Dye,
Sure.
and he says, Pete, come and hang with me for like a month and help me out with this golf course. And, you know, I would really appreciate that. So Pete goes to Alice and says, Alice, how about we go to Hilton Head for like a beach vacation? Okay. He mentions nothing about working with Jack designing a golf course. It's like, let's go to Hilton Head. And so every day it's Pete and Jack out on the golf course moving dirt around, and Alice comes up and says, Pete, I thought you said we were going to have this vacation. And Pete's like, yeah, you know, but Jack needs me to help. How about, she's like, but I'm bored. He said, how about we need help on the 13th hole? Can you go, how about you go and design the 13th hole for us? And I would, to this day, I would take the 13th hole at Harbour Town, and if I were to pick my 18 best holes of all time, the 13th hole at Harbour Town would be there.
See, that's just amazing. And Al, you know, I don't know that people understand the influence Alice had when it came to Pete's designs. I mean, he talked about it later in his life, but she wanted to talk about it early. That was Alice, right? And Alice was on the board of directors before anybody even knew there was a national PGA board of directors. But Alice would make it very clear, if you were with Alice at any moment in time, that if you were a woman in golf, it was your responsibility to ensure every golf course had an appropriate setup for a woman's club head speed. And she didn't call it then, she would just call it club head speed, right? Yeah. And he was like, there was no ending the conversation. She would say, and what are you going to do about it? And why are people playing from 5,800 yards? Why do women get born on the same tee and die on the same tee? You need to fix it, right? Alice was entrenched in golf course architecture. She was really the first one to design golf courses from a forward tee. Most golf, not necessarily today, but then really from a back tee, for the visual, for the carries, for, you know, the aesthetic pleasure of being on the tee. And she would always get aggravated at a golf course that hadn't thought of that for a tee. Do these people not know that the 150-yard out is where everybody hits the golf ball, and there's not a woman that wants to play here, you know? So she was just, you know, I say this laughing, but it's because I respected her so much and the work she did in the game and beyond forward tee. And she, to your point, she designed many holes that weren't just about women's golf. They were just about golf.
I actually think it would be a tremendous idea, because I've traveled all over the world and played golf courses, and it seems like in America, ladies' tees are better. They're not great, but they're better. If you go to Europe or Africa, there was one particular hole in Italy that we played. It was for the guys. It was kind of a cool hole, but it had this massive tree in the middle of the fairway. The ladies' tee box was right in front of this huge tree. And so the ladies, I happened to be playing with ladies that day, and they turned and looked at me and said, what do you think? I said, well, you got to pick, you know, are you going under, over, left, or right? And it was like such an
Yes.
afterthought. Such an
What?
afterthought.
You should have said, "This stupid. Move over here."
Yeah, it was like, this is crazy. I actually think it would be a good idea, and this would be a great almost selling point for any course architect to have a lady who could come along and say, okay, you've designed this lovely golf course. Now I'm in charge of the lady's perspective. And they know the numbers, they know the distance, and say, no, we're not going to put the ladies' tee there. We're going to put it there. I think that would be a tremendous idea for any course designer, because typically they don't get it right.
Yeah, and I think that, there's many women who want to play from 6,500 yards, right? So we're not saying that all women or all men belong on X tee.
Yeah.
But when you look at statistics, which we have, and you look at average carry yardage, which we have, golf courses should be designed around that. And you should be able to age, you should be able to progressively still enjoy the game and move up, right? Whether you're male or female.
Yeah.
I think the more about, all right, why can't we have 3 or 4 tees are between 4,300 yards and 5,400 yards. Now, I'm not naive. I realize there's an expense to what we're talking about, because nobody wants to plug 2 tee boxes, 2 circles down in the middle of the fairway and say that's where you're going to play.
Yeah.
Not a real tee, and that's expensive, and I get that. But I think as we try to get more people in the game, as we as coaches want to welcome people to our facilities, not only because it's the right thing to do, but it's good for business. We have to stop ignoring half the population, right? And
for sure.
That they have disposable income too, and they have a lot of choices to spend that disposable income. And if their enjoyment of the facility is higher, they're going to spend more time there. Coaches are a huge part of that, right? For facilities. So is the golf course. So is the golf course.
Yeah, and I do like the idea of multiple tees, and you can call them, they shouldn't necessarily be called the ladies' tees, because I know a huge percentage of the golf population, male-wise, should be playing a lot further forward than where they're currently playing. You know that too, and that smile tells me you do. And you know what's interesting, Suzy? I think because men will typically be, no, I'm not going up there. But ladies, better playing ladies, they love to push the envelope too. And they're like, no, I'm not going to play the ladies' tees. I'm going to play 1 back or 2 back from there. And they're better, but they're not that much better. And it's a little bit of the same thing.
I always try to convince people, maybe in a little different way, if you're fortunate enough to play the same club, maybe you're a member at this club, and that's great. But let's even say it's a public facility that you enjoy playing every couple days. If that's the case, why would you want to play from the same yardage every time you play instead of spending a day on the back tee, for example, and then setting a new target score for yourself? Maybe if you're used to shooting 75, all right, I'm going to try to break 85 from the back tee. Or why not go all the way up and see how low you can go? I always found it fascinating with my juniors who thought they were something pretty special, right? And then we'd say, all right, you know what? Today we're going to have a new game. Everybody's going to play the forward tee, and I want to see who can get to 8 under, right? And, not a one of them with par, right?
Yeah.
Everywhere, and their short game stunk, and they'd shoot 74 and say, well, I had a bad day, right? But I always tell these families that as your child is getting really good, from whatever tee it is, let's say it's a 6,400 yard tee and they're 12 or 13, they haven't gone into the growth spurt yet, they don't have a lot of power yet, that's the time not to push them back. And I have all these parents that want to push their kids back. That's the time to push them up, because those little rugrats are the ones that just go right past the kids who hit it long early. Because the kids who hit it early, they don't develop that short game skill like a Justin Thomas has developed, or the Rory McIlroy. I mean, you look at the little guys on tour who are 5'7" and 155 pounds, 60 pounds soaking wet, who bust it. You look at them and you realize very quickly that those 12, 13-year-old 6 foot tall, young men and tall women who may be 5'9", 5'10" at that age, who hit a lot of greens early because the golf course is short. Their short game skills are not as good. So push your long hitters up, force them into using their, right? That's just my opinion. And a lot of parents, I think, would serve their children really well, letting them move around tee boxes. But I also think adults, why not have a little fun and change that forward, go back, go to a different tee than you normally play. They're all rated now. For men and for women from almost every tee. So you can still post your score, but you might not go as low as you think you're going to go.
Yeah, that's always interesting. It's a little blow to the ego. Oh, man, I didn't go as low as I thought I should have. Suzy, what do you think? Here's an interesting topic, a different one. What do you think about specialization? Young players, you've spoken a lot about young players. What do you think about younger players, both male and female, specializing? I see a lot of that. I'm sure you do too. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I know. I'm proud of what we've done at PGA of America with the development model. We are, doing that right now as we speak alongside the United States Olympic Committee. What that means is long-term athletic development, which is not specialization. So PGA.coach, anybody that doesn't know about it, hop on there, go through the certified. It doesn't take long. It's fun material to go through. You'll learn a lot. But, for me and for other athletes that I've had the opportunity to spend some time, it's very rare that, and this is statistic, my opinion, it's very rare that elite champion athletes specialized. There are the most ones that did, so I know that's the case, but it's few and far between, and most of them are 3 or 4 sport athletes, and that's for the basis of functional movement skills. It's to complete a whole child, a whole athlete. I mean, you want to build your children into these whole athletes, the best athletes they possibly can be, without skipping stages. And that's not based on age. It's just based on where they are in a moment in time and space, and that their ability allows them to perform. And if you allow that to happen and don't specialize till 14 or 15, you're going to find that your 14 and 15-year-old goes right past, in most cases, not always, the 11 and 12-year-old elite winner of most everything, just doing one sport. It was the same in ski. I grew up as a ski racer, trained to be in the Olympics for that. It was the same for that. All of us were 3 or 4 sport athletes, and because of that, we had less injury. I believe most of us that I am friends with still play those sports because we love them. They're joyful for us. They weren't a chore for us. Didn't get burned out by the time we were 15. It was still fun and new and challenging to all of us, and so we're still playing it. I hope that's the goal for all of us as coaches. I know a lot of us as coaches would love to see one of our players make it to the elite, to be and hold up the Wanamaker. I mean, how cool would that be, right? But at least for me, my
Suzy,
goal.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I've got to say, well done on saying the Wanamaker. That's very good. You're good. You are good. I like it.
But I mean, you want people to play for a lifetime, right?
Yeah.
I coach, I just want people to love it. Correct. And if they choose it as their profession, fantastic. If they don't, and they're just this wonderful golfer that can enjoy it for business and with family, fantastic. So, that's the way I'm training. Yes, everybody can take an elite route with 80, and that's great. And you can also split that off and just be really good, fun golfer with maybe baseball might be your specialty, or field hockey, or football. I encourage all children to play multitude of activities in sport. They will be better for it. They will be better for it.
Here's an interesting story, and it'll kind of share my opinion, which aligns with yours. The best player I ever coached finished in the top 10 of an LPGA major at the age of 13. She won the US Junior at the age of 13, and at 26 didn't compete any longer.
Wait, I want to think about who this was.
You can look it up. You can look it up. But she was amazing and just a competitor, but it was super duper uber specialization from day one, and she was incredible, incredible. But I'll often say to students, would you rather be the best 15-year-old in the world or the best 25-year-old in the world? Because
It wasn't
what's that?
Park, was it?
No,
Okay. Keep
no,
going.
it I'll tell you. I'll tell you later. I'll tell you later. Yes, Paul Whalen's got it. It was one of the song girls. It was Ari's song. He's got it.
Nari. Ari or Nari?
Ari.
Oh, she was really good.
Ari was the Terminator of the two. Nari was like super sweet and had a lovely swing. Ari's swing wasn't as good, but Ari was she wasn't afraid to destroy people.
And then she quit.
Yeah. Yeah. It was quite sad, really. It was quite sad because they were both fabulous golfers, fabulous golfers. But I feel like looking back in hindsight, it was just too much, too early, and they didn't get a chance to really grow up and a chance to just be kids and get away from the game a little bit.
Let me ask you this, Andrew. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please do.
So when you're working with young girls, right, I find in my trial that oftentimes young girls, and less now over the course of the last 5 years than prior to that, aren't really pushed as hard in programming as some of the young boys. When you were teaching the Ari and the Nari songs, what was it that you knew in your gut that made it okay for you to push them to be the best, that even though perhaps they hit it, let's say, okay, you have a young girl who already hits it 200 yards off the tee, she's very young. Everybody's, oh, you did so great. That's amazing. Good for you. If a boy was doing that, right, typically there would be very little conversation. But, 200 is not enough anymore for a young girl. What gave you the ability to say, you're not good enough? Like, let's move on. Because I think it would help a lot of coaches to kind of understand the principle from somebody who can say, I had the junior girls champion, and this is what happened, and this is how I got it done.
I would say this, Suzy, it's most of the pushing, and I think a lot of it is cultural. Most of the pushing came from somewhere other than the person you're looking at. Most of the pushing came from elsewhere. And it was when children are 10, 11, 12, 13, they don't necessarily think for themselves, and their parents are their idols, and they look up to them, and they do exactly what their parents say. And so they just do it. Well, if you just do something a lot, i.e. golf, you know what happens? You become really good. But when you get to a point where you can start to think for yourself, things change, and you look at the world differently, and you start to go, well, I would like to do that, and I would like to experience that. And you start to pull away, and things change. I would honestly, as a coach today, I would look at a young golfer, a 13-year-old, and say, fantastic, keep having fun. I would not push a lot. I would encourage a lot. I would provide opportunity as much as possible, but there would be very little pushing. By the time we get to 16, that's a different deal. That person is able to think for themselves, and I would go, okay, what do you want? If you want to play golf, let's go. If you want to be a baseball player, let's go. Then I would say, this is how we're going to do it. This is the structure. This is what we need. If you want to get to that level, now we've got to dedicate this towards it. But prior to 16, I really don't think that's a good option, simply because it can go too far, and it can get to a point where, and I see we're at 158, so we've got to cut this off, Suzy.
Okay.
I don't know how we got to 158, because if I don't cut it off now, we'll come back in 1 minute, but I'm going to end it so we don't lose it.
Yeah, okay.
I'm coming right back. Okay, everyone stick around. Joanna, Andrew Wade, where is Suzy? Is she coming back? Hopefully, because this is a good discussion. Sebastian, Suzy, there. Oh, I saw her. Suzy, here we go. Hold on. There she is. She's joining in. Thanks, everyone. Sorry about this. Hi, Aileen. Nice to see. Suzy, I'm terribly sorry. And so this is the way it works on Instagram. If you go 1 second beyond 60 minutes, it cuts off. And then you...
Minutes so fast. That was fast.
Yeah, I looked. The last time I looked, it was like 1:42. So we're coming back. Yes, Joanna, they're coaching. Nari's coaching at Harvard now. But this is a cool discussion. Thanks for coming back, everybody, and yourself, Suzy. My take is this: I would leave kids. I would give them opportunity. I would give them encouragement, and say, go play, go learn how to hit the ball, go hang out with your friends if you've got friends out on the golf course. But when you're 16, let's talk. Let's make a decision. Now we're gonna convert it a little bit more into work versus just play.
Yeah, and so like even at that age, at 16, 17, I think what I would change is somebody said to me, Suzy, if you were to look back 10 years as you were developing some really strong players for college, is there anything that you would have changed in that time span before they went to school and what you did from 16 on, right? And what I would have changed most likely is I would have made sure they understood entirely the methodology of their own golf swing, right? What worked for them, doesn't work for them. So long as they're in a stage where, it's harder for boys, obviously, because they could keep growing even through college. That might change on them. So I would make sure they understood, the dynamics of their body mechanics, what's going to happen if they can't send me a video with their coaching team there. But I would 100% emphasize 100%. And I did not do that. I worked so hard on power. I worked so hard on speed that by the time they got there, they were good. But if I were to coach that group again, and if there's people out there coaching that group, and I know people are probably nodding like, yes, I already do that. You got to do it 4 times harder than you're doing it, especially in the female space. I think if women, their careers are shorter than the men's, at least statistically right now. A lot of women are coming out at 17, 18, either skipping college or going for a few years, then going out on the tour. With COVID, how that's going to impact any of that. It might even be more so, or maybe less. But then by 32, if they are done, like Nari is done, right? So you only have 10 years if you look at it that way, or 14.
Yeah.
You've got the Julie Inksters that are the antithesis of that. Obviously,
Yeah.
The players who have had huge longevity in the game, but not as many as the men. And then you think about people. And then why do these incredible ball strikers not win every week, right? That you see on the LPGA Tour. And the only thing, and maybe you can help me with it, the only thing I can come back is their wedge game, right? And you look at their wedge game, you look at their launch angles, you look at their spin rates, and you think, gosh, what is that a factor of? Why aren't women, at least in data, as good with their wedges? So I throw that to you, Andrew.
Oh, that's a biggie. I've gotten in some trouble over the years on this discussion, Suzy. You're creating trouble for me. Here's my take, and I'll try to say it in 1 minute. If I had a group of 15-year-old boys who were all good golfers, and I had a group of 15-year-old girls who were all good golfers, and I dropped each group off separately at the chipping green, and I said, you've got an hour, work on your short game. Okay, I'm going to ask you after, and they're unsupervised. 20 minutes in, what are the boys doing?
Screwing off.
Yes, and it's a contest. Okay, you are correct. Yes, it's a contest. And they're doing crazy dumb stuff like hitting 3-iron flop shots out of bunkers over the cart, bouncing off the cart path. Okay, that's what boys are doing. What are the girls doing 20 minutes in?
Rule followers, diligently.
Correct.
Whatever.
Typically, okay, and I'm talking very generally here, okay? And so my experience from that is that they can't wait to jump outside the lines. And boys will jump outside the lines and they'll learn how to open the face and swing hard and make it go short and hit it low with this lots of loft and all these different things. And they'll do that skill development stuff outside the lines. The girls, through no fault of their own, and they're totally capable of doing it, but they typically tend to stay inside the lines and they'll be talking to one another because they've got to do that. But they'll stay with what they've been taught and they'll do what they're meant to do. Okay.
Which is the exact answer I wanted you to give, so I have to interrupt you.
Okay.
Because I think this is where we can change the tide, right? As coaches, we have to build those games and put them out there for our students. Because if you told a young, and again, please, nobody start firing emails at either of us because we're just having a conversation here. No generalizing. There's plenty of girls that play those games and there's plenty of boys that are followers. We know that.
Yes, Lexi grew up with two older brothers who I know stepped outside the line. And you look at Lexi's swing, it's not like this textbook move, but she is tremendously skilled and she can do it. Girls are capable of doing it like the boys, and boys are capable of doing it like the girls.
Now, I grew up with a sister, right, who didn't play golf. So I needed my coach to do. So literally back then, Joe Tesori would try to make me hit it over the range cart and under the tree, right? I would stay there all day. So I had no idea why I was trying to do that. But I implore coaches to realize that for some students, you need to make up the game and they will stand there diligently. For other students, they're going to make up a better game than you do.
Yeah.
And just let them make up that game. If they want to hit 8-iron out of the bunker, I mean, Gym Flick 101, right? Don't tell them they can't. Don't tell them, oh, no.
Try it.
You know, you hit your 56 and what bounces on. Like, okay, do it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Not primary learning mode when kids can self-learn, when an adult can actually learn on their own without you constantly giving them the inputs. If you just set stations up, and in today's environment, those stations are mandatory, I think, even for adults, because our attention span is so small.
Yeah.
So it can't be 15 men standing in a line hitting 30 golf balls each. They get bored.
Yeah.
Right? You've got the same for the kids, but build cool stations. Build stations that are like, you can't do this. You can't under that, can you? Right? Are you kidding me? They'll stay there all day long. So you kind of fell into my trap. I apologize, but I wanted
love it.
People to realize that it isn't different. They do have the physical skill set. I just sometimes have to lead every student to the well. And other students are just so creative and can't stand still. And they're just going to make up stuff, right, the whole time.
Yeah.
Be taught attention and awareness and intention, right?
Yeah.
Ones who are playing games, if they never learn how to have intention, they're going to struggle trying to get the ball in the hole.
Yeah, totally. It's where players learn to use their tool. And I look at their tool as their golf swing. You're going to need to cause the golf ball to do lots of different things with your golf swing. You play golf for long enough. It's not this consistency objective. It's not making the ball do the same thing. It's making the ball intentionally do different things. And I know a lot of people are going, well, my ball does a different thing all the time. Intentional is the important word there. Intentional. Yeah. And that to me is skill. That's skill development. To the point where the player can control the golf ball. And we've got to, as coaches, we've got to allow our students to step outside of these super structured environments and go and play. There's a player who's currently on the PGA Tour. He told, I used to teach him, and that's most likely why he's on the tour now, because I gave him like 2 lessons once. No, that's not true. But he told he played college golf at Georgia Tech, and he said at one point the entire men's golf team climbed onto the roof of a building to hit a chip shot to the green. That's dumb. But I love it.
I would have done it.
Yeah.
You know, when I played in the GHO, Peter Jacobs at the time. His company was my agent, and so I knew Peter well. And we get to the Travelers Championship, which is at East of River Highlands, and I'm going to play a practice round with Peter. And we get out on the golf course, and as I mentioned, you know, the LPGA Tour, amazing, unbelievable talent and players, right? But the pin placements, when I played in 2003 in the GHO versus when I played in an LPGA Tour, were definitely more tucked. In today's, I can't say that that's the case, but then they were more tucked. And so it was even more imperative, me knowing that I didn't have the distance, that my short game was spot on and that I wasn't short-siding myself.
Yeah.
So there, and Peter's walking through the holes with me and really trying to help. And Paul Isinger was there, and he was trying. There's just tons of information coming in.
Yeah.
And like, I hit the ball, right? I feel like I'm out there in my first club championship, and could everybody stop talking? Because the practice round, right? We hadn't even gotten to the first round. And finished, and Peter said, and then I want to meet you on the chipping, right? So I'm like, Peter, you don't have to, like, give me a break. You don't have to help me. I know you're trying to get ready to win this. He's like, no. He goes, your chipping is horrible. He goes, I'm going to show you a new shot, right? I thought I was a pretty good chipper of the golf ball, right? But I was a one shot. I took some lessons from Bill Davis long ago when I first got on tour, and he had taught me a couple different shots, but I always went back to my go-to, hands forward, ball center, very little pivot, kind of a nothing, kind of hop, no spin on it, and just kind of died, right? Like that didn't work for our hands. And to your point of just showing people how to do something. So, you know, playing a little game. He brings me to the chipping area. Meanwhile, you can imagine how intimidating that is, right? You've got David Duval, a player out there, Vijay Singh, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, should I just go home? I don't really belong on the green. He's like, come on, throw down 10 balls. I got to show you a shot. He shows me this little shot, right, where he makes my, I don't know if he did, but he makes my left wrist kind of do this inflection where it's working down, my knuckles rolling over. I'm supposed to hit it with the toe, and it's just going to hop up, double hop, and roll out to the hole. So he's trying to explain it to me without instructional code, but just do it like this, right? So
just do it.
Like just do it. So I tried it, and not very well. He's like, why aren't you using your feet? Like, move. Like, why do you keep standing still? Anyway, we get to this point where I just started copying him. I move my feet a little. I let my left wrist kind of rotate down and under, hit it a little off the toe. And I tell you what, I used that shot. If you ever watched that tape, I used that shot literally 11 times and got up and down at the GHO because of Peter. And then Peter won the golf tournament.
Wow,
he won
that's
the golf.
Cool.
But if you think about, my point is, like, sometimes you have to see it from somebody who's done what you just said. A boy somewhere, girl somewhere, who made it up, who figured it out. I'd never been taught it, right? And I was like, it didn't possibly work. I only know how to keep the face completely solid, no motion at all, and no leg work, right? And and so that's what it took for me. So, you know, don't be afraid as a coach to learn something new, to watch another coach, to learn from a tour player, to say, you know, how do you do that? How do you hit that shot? And they're not going to be able to tell you in coaching terms. But if you can break it down and figure it out, they'll just go, well, just move your knuckle, right? You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And I heard a great story right along those lines from D.A. Weibring many, many years ago. And D.A. said he was playing in Dallas. And on the 17th hole, which I think was the par 3 with the water in front of the green, he hits it over the green. And he's playing with Tiger on Sunday. And, you know, this was early in Tiger's career. And D.A. hits this little shot that he had kind of conjured up over his years out there. This little high, soft one that checked up and trickled down to a couple of feet. And D.A.'s hit the shot, and he's putting the club back in the bag, and he turns around, and Tiger's like right here. And he's like, what? He's, what? And Tiger's like, you got to teach Junior that shot. He says, as soon as we're done, you're taking me, and you're going to show me that shot. And so, you know, clearly the best ever is out there looking at these other players going, I need that shot. I'm going to need that shot coming up.
Yeah, and he just swipes them, right?
Yeah.
And one of the best ever, right? But that's just
Yeah.
because he's like, what are you doing over there? Well, what are you
Yeah.
doing over there? Right?
Yeah. Okay, Suzy, come on. Final question, and thanks for
Yeah.
extending a little bit. I appreciate it. I know in the shop there, people are saying, "Where's Suzy? Where's Suzy?" But you're coming. You're coming. One more question.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you could play 3 golf courses only for the rest of your life, as many times as you want, but only 3, which ones would you play?
Cyprus, right?
Okay.
Marion Hollis, right? So there's like a theme here for me on female architects, right? She just got
Okay.
a game. Well, I got to go Whistling Straits. That's Alice Dye, right? I helped with Whistling Straits, and that's where we have our Ryder Cup coming up.
Cool.
So
Yes.
I mean, it's so hard though. That golf course is brutal. So like my over and under there is definitely hard 75. So
Really, eh?
golf course. And then I gotta say, people ask me that question all the time. And the last one's sentimental for me, right? So it's the club I grew up at. It's a place called Saga Golf and Country Club. The longest tee there is about 6,450 or 6,500 yards. But I have just these amazing memories of playing with mom on that golf course. And if I could do that again, I'd do anything.
That's cool. That's great. I love that. I love that. Suzy, thanks so much for being on. I really appreciate you sharing and some of your insights and just listening to you talk about this game and really seeing and sensing your love for the game. It's great to see. It's so cool to learn from you and just sense your passion. Keep doing the great things you're doing. You're doing awesome. Keep it up and stay safe. Get those golfers dialed in, would you?
You got it. And next time I'm going to interview you, you're going to go through your entire wedge play, everything.
Oh, I'll have to get ready. I'll have to start getting ready.
Yeah, I'm going to be the #1 student in line.
Okay. You got a deal.
Thanks so much, Andrew.
Thanks, Suzy. Appreciate it. Take care.
Bye.